Hey everybody, welcome to Noon O'Clock. I'm TJ Carpenter, and we're having a couple of technical difficulties in our return. Triumphant return, though it is. All right, before we get things started, as always, we want to remind you about our sponsors. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. We're going to talk Colin Kaepernick stuff as well. So get your questions, your comments, your hot takes, all that stuff. Get it all ready because we're going to talk all about that stuff on the show today. So, first things first, though, as I mentioned, we got to talk about our sponsors. So let's get our mentions in there for that. Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. Go to tjsagent.com if you're looking for real estate in Denver because Brent knows what he's doing. He was fantastic for my wife and I. I cannot say enough about how much Brent Malia did for my wife and I. We were looking for a house in Denver. Found us our dream house in a really competitive market. And continues to help us every single day with the things that we do around the house. Because we want a little bit older house. We wanted a house that was unique, and so we're redoing a lot of stuff to make it the way that we want to make it, the way you do too. And Brent has been a tremendous resource for us in that regard. So if you want that kind of treatment, if you want that TLC. Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. Go to tjsagent.com and get in contact with him. Best in the business. I cannot say enough, especially with how well he knew the market and how he knew where to look. He knew how to find houses for us that we didn't even know were there. So check out Brent. And then, of course, don't forget also check out Sean Sedita with Platte River Mortgage. PlatteRiverMortgage.com if you're looking for help with your mortgage here in Denver as well. All right, look, sorry for the tease. We are going to talk a little bit about the Denver Broncos, certainly on the show today, because we talk every day about what's going on with the Denver Broncos on this show. I've been away for a little while, and that has to do with the fact that I am putting together a show on Watch Mojo. So for those of you who are not aware, Watch Mojo is one of the biggest YouTube channels on the planet. I think 32 million YouTube subscribers. We're really happy to be working with them. And I wanted to tell you, check out our new show, What the Football, WT Football on the Watch Mojo channel on YouTube. It's a fantasy sports show, so we're doing mostly that stuff, but I think we probably will end up talking a little bit about this Colin Kaepernick stuff, which is where I want to start. Colin Kaepernick is the face of Nike's 30th annual Just Do It campaign, which started with Michael Jordan, as a lot of people know. This is a weird place that we have found ourselves in, where there are these really important issues that people care about. And in pure American fashion, what we have done is take a really important issue about race relations between minority, especially impoverished minority communities, and the police. And then we have countered that with other people on the other side who want just a very serious issue as well, respecting the military and the role military plays in terms of our society and sovereignty and all those kinds of things, Americanness, patriotism, all of those things. So two really serious issues, right? And all that wrapped up in the flag has now been used to basically sell sneakers and football. And look, this is one of those moments where if you want to know what most people think about something, go look where the money goes. I said this on Twitter earlier today. And guys, I want to get to a lot of your comments here. So if you have comments, please, by all means, share them in the comments section. We will read those on the air. But what I really wanted to say to everybody today is, look, these are really serious issues that we have kind of left in the rearview mirror. We are now using the controversy to either take advantage of people's sentiments on one side or the other. And the NFL has decided to go with the more conservative side of things and not represent it and not represent political dissent. And then the other side has started discussing well, now the sneakers are supporting that side. So now we have these two enormous corporate entities, both of which make billions of dollars a year annually. In fact, Nike has already made $36 billion in 2018, and it's not even football season yet. And the NFL, back in 2016, the closest I could find, made $13 billion. So, first of all, wow, Nike is way bigger than the National Football League. And, you know, that's, financially speaking, that matters. That's a really important point that we can't forget in all of this, is that Colin Kaepernick is being supported by a bigger company than the NFL. So, if you want to know what most people think about something, or at least what corporate America thinks most people think about something, follow the money. And clearly, Nike is speaking to their base, which is, by the way, the majority of the United States. I saw this earlier today as well. Nike owns 62% of the U.S. market. 62%. That is crazy high. So when you see numbers like that, I think it's really easy to wonder, what exactly do you think a boycott for those people who are boycotting the Nike now today? What do you think a boycott's going to do to Nike? You think that Nike all of a sudden, oh no, white people who never bought our sneakers before are now not going to buy our sneakers in continuance. So, woe is us. You see it down there at the bottom of the screen. Nike drops 2.8% after being up a meager 29.8% on the year in their stock price. It's it's amazing. What's up, Eric? What's up, G? What's up, guys? This is amazing to me. We're going to start a third season of football here, talking about the national anthem and talking about Colin Kaepernick and talking about this issue, because it's not going away. It's not going away. I think the NFL thought they could just shut up about it. That didn't work. I think they thought that they could play the political angles and use their power the way that they usually do. That didn't work. And so now you're looking at the whole, the whole get-up, everything that they've done to this point, and it seems to have fed into a financial opportunity for Colin Kaepernick here, certainly. But I think more so than that, he remains in the consciousness of America. And so Nike's saying, look, I'm going to support. Nike's saying we're going to support individuality. We're going to support individualism. And I say an ism. This is an ism because that's what Nike has made their brand off of. In fact, a lot of people will look at Nike and say that they have demeaned the team mentality by creating too many individuals in sports. I've seen that a lot today. But of course, this is what Nike has always represented, that it's a lot about the shoes that you wear and that you can express yourself through our product, and we are going to support that expression. That's a really big thing. They've been selling individualism for a long time. So what is more important to them in this instance than protecting the right of an individual to speak up? Using that kind of iconicism to drive home a point about the way you think about yourself is that's Nike's business. In fact, I don't know if there's really been any company in the history of the planet who's better at it than Nike. This is really interesting territory we're in now, because the NFL put their foot down and said, you're going to do what we say. And Nike, who has a 10-year partnership with the NFL, as their every single thing that you are going to see, every single snap of an NFL game this year is going to have a Nike logo on it. All of it. You will see, there will be a Nike logo somewhere on your screen every frame of an NFL game. It's everywhere. It's impossible to ignore Nike. Eric says, I commend Nike for being the first brand to get behind Kaepernick. Showed some balls, and I love it. I do too. I'm a free speech guy. I think people who've watched this show for any amount of time know I'm big into free speech, and I'm big into letting people express themselves. And anytime a corporation tells one of their employees to shut up, or else show them the door, because it's bad for morale or it's bad for business. It's like, hey, I don't think individualism or person's rights are ever bad for business. That's me. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes it is bad for business. Kind of depends on what your business is. But for Nike's business is individuality. They're selling to individuals. And I don't know if the NFL is necessarily doing the same thing. They sell to groups. They sell on people's tribalism. I mean, that's what sports is, right? It's two tribes going to battle, fake battle, against one another, and somebody comes out victorious. That's how this all works. That's how tribalism works. And that sports is a really good thing for that, because it allows people to yell at a TV instead of actually picking up a weapon of some sort and going to battle with another city like we used to. That's that's really what football in a big way is. But this is really, really interesting to me because Nike basically put their foot down and said, just try us on this Kaepernick stuff. We own you, NFL. What do you want? You want out of the contract because you don't like who we do business with? Why don't you like who we do business with? Is it that big of a problem? Because I think Nike could make life a living hell for the NFL. I don't think the NFL can make Nike's life a living hell. That's not gonna. It doesn't work that way. As they say, shit rolls downhill. Like Nike is above the NFL, and I know that that's really hard for a lot of people to acknowledge because the NFL is such a big part of our sports consciousness, and Nike was able to build off that. But they were also able to build off of basketball and baseball and soccer, especially soccer. I mean, every 62% market share, $36 billion in annual revenue already this year, and it's football season hasn't even started. That is remarkable financial power. So clearly they know what they're doing, and clearly given the fact that they know that everything that they get from here on out in terms of revenue for the season is a wash, like it's the most revenue they've ever done by far in a year, that they kind of get to do what they want. Because that's, they basically, the NFL pushed back on the cultural importance of Colin Kaepernick and said, we don't want that in our sport. And the cultural importance pushed right back and said, well, we're bigger than you, and you're going to do what we want. And, eventually I think the NFL kind of has to cave. And if anybody's going to make the NFL cave, it's not going to be a government, it's not going to be a person, it's not going to be a group of people. It's going to be the cultural symbol that is Nike. That's what it is. That's what it's going to be. All right, let's get back to some more comments. It made me want to buy only Nike. Yeah, I think that a lot of people feel that way. What's up, Wade? Patrick says, finally. All right, we're back. I know, I'm sorry. We were away for a little while. My apologies. We were working on a really big project. Go check it out over on Watch Mojo. It was on our page here at Phantom as well. But I think this whole Colin Kaepernick situation is very interesting to me because it says a couple of things. It says that Nike knows that most people in America are on Colin Kaepernick's side, and by most people, I mean if they own 62% of the market and they continue to expect to own 62% of the market, which they do, they'll probably grow that this year actually, because this is the best year they've ever had by far in terms of revenue and growth. That they know what they're doing. I've never understood this. Why we assume that people in power sometimes, especially financial power, are stupid. Nike, like the people who run Nike, the amount of research that people like me have in terms of what audiences do online and what audiences listen to on the radio and things like that, the amount of information I have access to as a lay person is astonishing. I know so much about you that you probably don't even know about you, just based off of data. And if I have that, what kind of data do you think Nike has? They know what they're doing. They know their data is better than any polling that Reuters could ever do. You know why? Because Reuters is in the business of polling. So they like polls. More polls is good for Reuters. Nike is in the business of being correct about their consumer base and being able to predict what people are going to do. And guess what? They're the best at it of any apparel company on the face or history of the planet. So I look, yeah, they know what they're talking about. They know how to approach people, and they know what people want. So clear, like, what do you think is going to happen if you burn Nike apparel in the middle of the street? You want to go viral? I think Ari Temkin made that point. What's up, Ari? I think Ari Temkin made that point earlier today. Do you want to go viral? Because that's the only thing that really burning your apparel in the street is going to do. It's going to make people look at you and laugh. It's going to make it. Some of the things that I see today. We've taken these really important issues, we've trivialized them to the point where they're just really a fake debate, and then we've taken that fake debate and we've cheapened it even further by taking the virtue of the debate in general, or the concept of debate, and we've decided to use it to sell sneakers and football. Because that's the brilliance of all of this, is that the NFL and Nike don't really have to actually fight. They just have to pretend fight. Because that's really all sports is, and it's all part of the entertainment. It's all part of the game. And, I wouldn't say that I feel cheated by all of this, or I feel like it's tainted, because you can pretty transparently see what this is all about, the moolah. I think it cheapens the real issue, we lost sight of the real issue. People have decided to curb that. They don't care about that anymore. Now it's just Kaepernick versus anti-Kaepernick, or flag versus anti-flag, or anthem versus anti-anthem, or it's, what's the virtue of capitalism? Should we be governed by the capitalistic sensibilities that profit and growth are good, that greed is good, or should we, because now all of a sudden greed is in the favor of our virtue? I mean, I don't know how people are reacting to this, but I do feel a little bit like it's not as jarring when you realize what something's about or what something has become. And this has become an ad campaign. An ad campaign for individualism, but that's really more like consumer-based economic growth. It's not investment, which I guess would be the other side. I look at the whole situation, and it fascinates me that despite any of this, no one's changing their mind. We're just learning more about who thought what. I take that back. I saw one person, Colin Daniels, who is a South Stands. He runs the South Stands blog here in Denver. He's pretty popular on Twitter. He's got a really good, strong base there on Twitter. Good following for that blog. He said he did a total 180 on the Kaepernick thing, and initially he was anti-protests of it, as a lot of people are or were, and said he did a 180. He's like, no, he's free to do what he wants. I'm much more about protecting individuals than I am protecting corporations, and you know what? More power to you. But that's what this is about. Now it's two corporations fighting. One wants the groups who do what they're told, and the other one wants individuals who are going to fight the idea of being in a group, because that's what they sell. That's what they sell. The NFL sells tribalism. Nike sells individualism, and that's what they're fighting for. The virtue of Kaepernick's argument is meaningless. I mean, look, and it may not. The people at Nike may agree with Kaepernick. They probably do, because most people do. But the idea that they would do something that would intentionally financially hurt their company. That's why, Clay Travis coming out today and talking about this 2.8% drop in their stock price, costing them $3 billion. Do you realize how small a drop in the bucket $3 billion over the course of an up and down stock market day is? That's nothing to Nike. They've had bigger drops than that this year, and they've had significantly larger increases than that. In fact, I'm guessing before the day is over, their stock may be up, or if after the week is over, their stock may be way up. One of the things that I wanted to mention too, because I don't know how many people have watched Andy says capitalism is okay. Yeah, capitalism's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying, like there's three things being represented here, right? There's Colin Kaepernick's side, which is the liberal side of things. There is the NFL side, which is the conservative side of things. And then there's Nike's side. And Nike veers towards Kaepernick because he's an individual and not a team. But Nike, Nike doesn't make choices that way. They make choices based off of what's going to make them money. That's how they make choices. So it's like we're so many steps removed from what it started as to what it is ending as, or continuing on as, or has evolved into. I don't know what it means. I don't know. I do know that a lot of people who are expecting that a boycott, Nike's impossible to boycott. You know that, right? It's impossible. You can't do it. It is literally impossible to hurt Nike at this point. Every NFL fan, like in the country, all of them could unilaterally decide to stop buying Nike stuff. That would hurt the NFL. It would hurt the NFL. It would hurt the NFL more than Nike if NFL fans tried to boycott Nike. It would end up hurting the thing that they're trying to protect. Brilliant. I mean, it's fail-safe. They can do no wrong. Nike played the whole situation perfectly. And they did it at the right time, too. They did it right before the NFL season started. It's perfect. It was absolutely perfect. Wait, at the age of 18, I got a Nike swoosh tattoo on my arm. Since then, I've all but regretted it. As far as it seemed faddish and trivial. But now I'm proud of it. I'm glad they decided to get on the right side of history with this. They're on the right side of history, most great companies are. That's why they survive. Andy says Nike isn't going down with the NFL on the Kaepernick saga. Nike will be okay in the end. That's right. Nike, like I said, boycotting Nike will hurt the NFL more than it hurts Nike. So it would be bad for the people who are trying to help the NFL's cause, I guess, or the NFL owner's cause, the conservative cause in this sense. It would hurt them more to do the thing they're trying to do to Nike. It's amazing. Amazing. Blake says, honestly, I don't think it will hurt their business that much. Nikes are too expensive, and they had problems a lot, though. Remember the sweatshops. Yes, Nike has its. That's what I'm saying. Like, Nike's got skeletons. Everybody's got skeletons. All these corporations have done evil shit. Like, that's especially the ones that are that big. Like, Nike's one of the biggest companies on earth. I think they're the 83rd largest company on earth. You realize how many companies are on the planet and they're 83rd? It's amazing. Most of those above them are energy companies. So energy and online stuff like Facebook. Which, by the way, they're all down. Adidas is down today. All the apparel companies are. The NFL doesn't seem afraid of hurting the NFL. That's true. G says, gotta go, guys. See you, G. Yeah, so give us your comments, guys. I would love to hear what you have to say on this issue or the other issues throughout the course of the day. But this was a really big thing from the weekend. And I wanted to mention it, and I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to weigh in because I think that, once again, third straight season of this, eventually the NFL is going to have to come to their senses and realize that this obstinance in this arena specifically, it is a loser. And I've said this to everyone on both sides of the aisle. This is not specific to the NFL because I said it to universities as well, especially universities actually. This limiting free speech thing, it is a loser in America. You think that people are obsessed with their right to own a firearm? There's a reason why the First Amendment is first and the Second Amendment is second. This thing is, I used to think it was a universal sort of accepted thing, that people everywhere, all Americans believed in the First Amendment the same way. The older I get, the more I realize that's not true. But I do think that it is true that most people view that as like that is your most individual right. Foremost, like at the top, your ability to express yourself the way you want to believe what you want to. That's you have to protect that. Most people agree with that. It's a loser for the NFL. It's a loser for any corporation that tries it. It's a loser for governments. It's a loser for universities. It's a loser for individuals in arguments. You got to let the other side talk. Always. Free exchange of ideas. And not to get too far off the rails here, but like I saw Malcolm Gladwell, who a lot of sports fans know because Malcolm Gladwell is a genius, and he's written a lot of stuff that's influenced, especially football. But and he's a big sports fan. He shamed the New Yorker for disinviting Steve Bannon to talk at a panel, and he said, "Look, man, it's not about whether or not you agree with him, but a free exchange of ideas has to be a free exchange of ideas. You have to exchange ideas. It's not an exchange of ideas if you just invite the people who agree with you. That's just a dinner party." Pretty good opinion from Malcolm Gladwell, if you ask me. But that's not the way. It's not the way a lot of people react anymore. I'm getting sanctimonious. I didn't mean to get sanctimonious on the show. Today's been a serious show. Wade says, "I wish I could have seen Goodell's and the owners' faces when this news dropped." They had to have been expecting it. I mean, Nike had to have informed them who was going to be the athlete of choice for this campaign. Let's see. Ari says, but the limiting free speech component is really important because it's heightened Kaepernick's appeal. It has. Andy, does Kaepernick have a Marvin Miller-esque attorney? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know who his legal representation is. Ari says, Cap has accomplished far more without being in the league than he ever could have if he ended up signing elsewhere. That's true. Being on the field would not help Colin Kaepernick at this point. I mean, being on the field initially would help him, but being on the field permanently back in the league, which will never happen, by the way, that doesn't help. That doesn't help the cause. It doesn't help his popularity. It doesn't help his notoriety. If the NFL were somehow forced to take him back, I don't think he would go, other than for a game or something. But I don't. I think we're past that. I don't think it happens. Ari said, if you polled 350 million Americans and had them play word association, I bet you Colin Kaepernick would be the most likely association. Colin Kaepernick has not played in the NFL since 2015, and yet he's still at top of mind when it comes to the NFL. Yeah, last time, he led the league in jersey sales without playing. That's remarkable. The last year he was in the league, led the league in jersey sales. Nike knows that. You think Nike didn't know that? They didn't take that into account? That he led the league in jersey sales by not playing? The NFL is more afraid of Kaepernick than hurting its own image and brand. I don't know. I definitely think they're afraid of Trump. I think that's well established. I don't know if they like him. In fact, I think from what I gather, no one really likes Trump at this point in the government, and in business circles. I think they have taken advantage of a few things, but I don't know. I don't get the sense that the NFL is particularly pleased with how any of this has played out, because they have been taking it on the chin for 3 years on this stuff. They didn't know how to handle it. They don't know how to handle this growth. I watched this. Have you guys watched The Shop on HBO? It just came out. Jon Stewart, LeBron James. They have some other people in there as well. Michael Bennett was in there. Basically, it's LeBron James and Jon Stewart, and they invite a bunch of other people to come and sit with them in a barbershop, black barbershop, while LeBron James gets a haircut, and they talk about social issues. It was a really cool show. But one of the things that stood out to me about that was, you've got guys. LeBron James is at the point now where he doesn't care. He is going to tell you what he thinks about something. And that is the biggest, most influential athlete on the planet right now. And he's saying, which means that now Aaron Rodgers feels comfortable saying stuff. Odell Beckham Jr. weighed in on things on that panel. You had this cultural confluence of voices that are all coming from different places: music, sports, entertainment, movies, all of this. The podcast, like the I wouldn't call it the intellectual dark web, but the kind of the thought makers of society. You have all these people talking about this stuff now. Athletes who want to play on that level now can. And Nike's saying we condone it. Not only do we condone it, but this is not Jordan's Nike. Jordan's Nike was for Jordan. And you know what? The way Michael Jordan wants to do his Nike is different than the way you want to do your Nike. Just do it. Doesn't matter what you do, just do it. That's what Nike's saying. So Nike's like encouraging LeBron James to speak out on stuff. They're encouraging athletes to speak out on social issues. You think the NFL, it behooves the NFL to steer against that? To go anti-individual when the biggest apparel company, the biggest seller, if they want to control the next generation of sports fans, apparel and video games. And the NFL leads in both of those. Well, they lead in a way. Nike's also got, by the way, their apparel company and their video games, and they make a lot of money off of video games because they get to go FIFA, not the NCAA games, but NBA 2K. Like, they do all of them. Doesn't matter. The NFL gets money from their Madden franchise, and that's about it. But, man, you can't tell me that you want to control the next generation, if you want to be a part of the process of what they like, the taste makers, so to speak, of the next generation, video games and apparel, man. At this point, the NFL can't tangle with Nike. They can't. And they also can't tangle with EA Sports either. And that's a really weird thing for a lot of adults to come to terms with. But esports is going to be as big in terms of viewership by 2022. That was a report that came out in Time Magazine, I believe, that they had anticipated by 2022, viewership will be equal in esports to the NFL. 2022 is 4 years away. That is not that far. You want to tangle with EA Sports? You want to tangle with Nike, NFL, or do you want to get in line? Because right now, I'm thinking that the NFL is looking at, okay, well, we can continue to do this the way that we've been doing it, which is just calling the shots for the last 15 years, or we may need to readjust our expectations on what exactly it is we can get from this relationship. First rule of power, man, you impose it and you flex it over the people you can. If you can dominate somebody in business, you dominate them. And Nike just showed the NFL who's boss. All right, let's see here. Andy says the NFL is more for. Okay, let's see. Patrick, Rockies are number 1 in the division. Who cares? If want to invest in Nike, just do it. Of course. Yes. All right, Denver Broncos have released their first depth chart. Royce Freeman is the starter at running back. Good for him. Of course, if anybody with eyeballs could have told you Royce Freeman is going to be the starter for the Denver Broncos. I think that he looks pretty good. If their running game looks as good as it has in the preseason, this season might turn out pretty well for the Denver Broncos. It was a good week. It was a good. I want to start positive here with the Broncos talk because it was a good week for Denver. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. They're putting Royce Freeman up top. That's good. They've got. I think their offensive line is improved. How much we'll have to wait and see. They corrected a lot of problems. That's great, but the decision making up top still really, really bothers me. But we'll get to that here in a second. Royce Freeman, really good. Their wide receivers were looking pretty good. If Case Keenum can just take advantage of the talent around him, this season might turn out all right for the Broncos. If Khalil Mack is no longer in the division, I think that the Broncos are the second best team. I think behind the Chargers, Broncos might be the second best team in the division. Chiefs' defense is terrible. The Raiders are in shambles. I don't know if I've ever been more embarrassed for the Raiders than I am right now. They've got an over-the-hill coach they just paid $100 million to, who is now fighting with their general manager, who I think in a fairly large way responsible for the turnaround for the team, and a team that's on its way out of town anyways. This season is going to be an abject disaster for Oakland. Oakland is going to suck so much. Let's see. Ari says, TJ, you were right all along about the Rockies. I was right all along. Look at it. First in the division. I told you they were going to the playoffs. Ari said, can't believe no one believed you, TJ, but you were right. You were the first person on that hype train. I was, from the very get-go. Guys, why are you guys talking baseball? No one wants to talk baseball right now. No one. You guys have your conversation about the Rockies all you want to. Just know that Kyle Freeland, good pitcher, not going to win the Cy Young. And then after him, it's just a Russian roulette gun chamber of who knows what is going to come from the rest of that rotation. And that's why they're not going to win a playoff series. But what was I saying before that? What was I talking about? Oh, Broncos. Okay, so all of the stuff that the Broncos did, Pac-Man Jones signing, great. Good decision. That was a good choice by John Elway. The Pac-Man Jones signing helps. Sua Craven's being placed on IR, not great. Their safety positions, they don't really have a great backup situation with their safeties. Their secondary is a problem. Outside of Chris Harris, I know Bradley Roby is decent, but outside of Chris Harris, that secondary bothers me. That's going to be a problem. Their outside linebackers are great, but they have 6 inside linebackers because they do not trust that Brandon Marshall will be able to make it through the season. So what do? You get a bunch of inside linebackers. And so they have 6 on the depth chart. It's a lot. It's a lot for the inside linebacker position. Okay, so we've addressed all of the positions. We love wide receiver. Running back looks very promising. Offensive line looks improved. We'll have to wait and see. We know quarterback is improved, but by how much, we don't know yet. And then on defense, there's some big problems in the secondary, problems at the inside linebacker, but outside linebacker, pretty good. Defensive line, we'll see how good they are there. Some people think they're going to be better. I am skeptical of that. Show me DeMarcus Walker first, and then I'll tell you the answer to that. But yeah, I look at the one last spot, and this was the big topic, and it's hard for people outside of Denver to understand why this is such a big topic. But to give everybody context, Paxton Lynch was drafted in the first round. Actually, John Elway traded up in the first round to get Paxton Lynch over the Dallas Cowboys, mind you, which was a fairly important thing there. I mean, Jerry Jones may have played John Elway into drafting a player that he should not have. I don't know how much the Cowboys are really interested in Paxton Lynch, but Broncos traded up to get Paxton Lynch in the first round. Over the weekend, John Elway, he cut that draft pick and then claimed off of waivers, was awarded off of waivers, which means nobody else really wanted this guy. Kevin Hogan, former Brown quarterback Kevin Hogan, who was drafted late by Andy Reid and was promptly cut, I believe, the year that they drafted him. So you just cut the guy you traded up for in the first round to claim a guy who is Andy Reid's third-hand garbage. How does that feel? Because it doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't. And look, a lot of people are of the mind here, like, okay, well, they finally moved on from Paxton Lynch. We can just forget about it and move on. I don't know if you can forget. I can't forget about it. Can you forget about it? I have a really hard time forgetting about how Paxton Lynch has basically been an eyesore on this team and been an indictment of their decision-making in general for 3 years. And look, that's the problem I have today. The problem I have today is that John Elway, the decision-making, how they got there is just infuriating. It's not Paxton Lynch, it's what Paxton Lynch represents. And this is what they did. They kept Paxton Lynch on the 53-man roster on cut day, which means they had to release D'Angelo Henderson, who has become a Jet, which is upsetting, but Paxton Lynch stole D'Angelo Henderson's roster spot. Drafted by the team, but wasn't drafted by, the first-round pick, wasn't traded up for in the first round. And they go out there and look, John Elway cuts D'Angelo Henderson and gets picked up by the Jets and leaves Paxton Lynch on the roster. Leaves him on the roster. And then, 18 hours later, cuts him so that they can pick up Kevin Hogan off of waivers. And by the way, Kevin Hogan's numbers are actually worse than Paxton Lynch's, if you can believe that. It's amazing how that happened. But they cut Paxton Lynch for shorter Paxton Lynch. Now, granted, he went to Stanford, so I guess there's that. But Kevin Hogan's an inaccurate quarterback who has had issues reading defenses and can really only run. That's what he did in Cleveland while he got some games there. It's just amazing to me. Once again. Let's see here. Ari says, can't sports just stay out of politics and stick to sports? Let's see. Jenna says, now you're hopping on the Broncos train too? I've kind of been on and off. I don't think they're a good team, but I think the division's terrible. I think there's a big difference. TJ still hasn't even taken on any of our wagers. He's a cat. I'm a cat? Rare. Let's see, Patrick. Over the weekend, the Rockies moved into first place. Andy, the Broncos are free of Bill Paxton, Marshawn Lynch, but they are still burdened with John Elway. It's very true. I feel like it's a burden. Andy says the Broncos aren't going to the playoffs, and yet the Rockies are still being overlooked. Disgraceful, Denver. Disgraceful. It's not. It's really not. Knowing what I know about both teams, it's really not disgraceful. But I would like to point out, the rationale for keeping Paxton Lynch as long as they did. The rationale this weekend for keeping Paxton Lynch on the 53, then cutting him, then signing Kevin Hogan, and keeping 3 quarterbacks. Look, it's not keep 3 quarterbacks. Every team has 3, but one guy is either on the practice squad or he's not active on game day. You don't have 3 quarterbacks active on game day. You've got 2 quarterbacks active on game day. They changed the quarterback rules a few years ago to where you don't get the 54th man anymore if he's your quarterback. So they've got 3 quarterbacks now. Kevin Hogan gonna be inactive in all these games. I look at their 3 quarterback rationale, and this is how it went. The second Chad Kelly won the job as the backup quarterback, they made a determination that they had to carry 3 because Chad Kelly had no experience. Even though he was clearly better than Paxton Lynch, clearly by virtue of being better than the other guy, you admit you're going to put him into a game. You're going to put him into the game before you put the other guy who has more experience into the game. Paxton Lynch it was determined that they were going to keep 3 quarterbacks. And then, after they make all the cuts, and they have their 53-man roster set, then all of a sudden, Mike Kliss tweets out, best 3rd-string quarterback in the league. What? Is that a thing? Is that something people say? I've never heard a reporter. I've never heard a reporter say, best 3rd-string quarterback in the league, great depth at the position. By virtue of saying, okay, well, we have to have a veteran quarterback presence who's clearly not as good as Chad Kelly, but Chad Kelly is the backup, so we have to have a 3rd quarterback. But because we're keeping Paxton Lynch, we've got the best depth at the position in the league. Best 3rd-string quarterback in the league, Paxton Lynch. That's a badge of honor. Good Lord. And then, after giving that rationale, shoving that down the fans' throats, then they cut him anyways so that they can pick up a guy who is statistically worse And there's no really other way than that to compare two guys who are going to be third-string quarterbacks for you is what has been their production to this point. And they got a guy who is unimaginably worse than Paxton Lynch statistically, although I still contend he's a Stanford grad, so I think upstairs he may be a little bit more qualified to read a defense. Who knows? But he's definitely not better than Chad Kelly, and he's definitely not better than Case Keenum. So you try to defend the decision to keep him by talking about how great the depth was. And then Vance Joseph said the same thing about like how great their quarterback depth is, and I roll to that. And you hear all this stuff, and then you're trying to figure out like how do people's brains work? What do you think? You think people are stupid? You think people are morons? I don't understand why you think you can like pull this off. It doesn't make any sense to me. Lynch represents our draft failure. Maybe he'll do better if we're in New England. If he were in New England, I can see Belichick trying to see if he can make him better and trade him off for a second or third round pick. Yep, absolutely. You get some of that Brady heat, all of a sudden you become a tradable asset. Well, that's been proven definitively true. Ryan Mallett got traded for like a second round pick or something stupid like that. Maybe Lynch would be a better outfielder. He is tall. Patrick says, Jenna, it's a sad truth, but Nolan, blah, blah, blah. Stick to sports. Andy says, maybe Lynch will sign up with Montreal and be Manziel's backup. That would be great. What's up, John? John Misak joining us in the house. Andy says, what if Manziel gets lost over the weekend, ends up in Buffalo, then Peterman, quote-unquote, disappears, and then suddenly the Bills sign a virtual unknown named Donnie Womanzel? Yeah, sure. That can happen. That can happen. Nathan Peterman, let's see, Brent says they didn't cut him until they sold all his jerseys up in the team store. Hey, Brent, following one of the tenets of today's show. Follow the money. Yeah, that's sure. Paxton Lynch, I thought, was an untradeable boat anchor, and they couldn't trade him. In fact, there was a report that said they tried to, no one wanted him, and then they just outright released him. He's getting a tryout, I think, in Buffalo. Think about that. Paxton Lynch may get a tryout and fail to get on a team in Buffalo that is starting Nathan Peterman at quarterback. I don't even know what to say to that. So all of this is just an indictment to say, look, everyone who wants to defend Elway today is saying, look, he cut all those draft picks, which sucked last year, so clearly he's learning his lesson. Also, he cut Paxton Lynch. What more do you want? It feels like to me that anytime Gary Kubiak is around, John Elway passes history class. It's basically like Gary Kubiak has to come in and do John Elway's homework so we can play in the big game on Friday. That's what this feels like. Oh, bring in Gary Kubiak so that Elway can play in the big game and score us some touchdowns. But we need you to do his homework for him tonight. Yeah, that's what Gary Kubiak is. Gary Kubiak has been doing John Elway's homework. He is the Marty McFly of the NFL. He is just sitting there and watching Biff bully everybody, and all he has to do is homework. That's what Gary Kubiak is. Gary Kubiak is the guy who's probably going to save the Broncos, and good on him for not needing any of the accolades and letting all that go to John Elway. But man, God bless Gary Kubiak, because he's the only reason that this is still working out. If Kubiak wasn't influencing this front office right now, all those players would still be on the team. Paxton Lynch would still be on the team. I don't even he's the brains of the operation. I think he deserves some credit for that. I think if they go on to win a Super Bowl, I'm going to give Kubiak the credit for being the GM. He's not going to get the paycheck or the title or the love. Your love, Denver, your love. Let's see. Joey says, overjoyed to see Paxton gone. Hopefully John really evaluating how he drafts and probably keep Kubiak here to help him in the future. Heck yeah, man. Kubiak is fixing the Broncos from the shadows. He's like Karl Rove. He's just running things. Nobody knows he's the puppet master. Kubiak is manipulating this organization without this organization even knowing Kubiak's doing it. But I think it's good that a lot of other people see what he's doing. His fingerprints are all over this stuff, all over this team. Let's see. Andy said sold, burned, sent to Africa, all the Patriots Super Bowl champion shirts, it's all the same. Joey says he's the only reason Elway will keep his job. Yeah, Joey's right. Absolutely, man. Kubiak is the dude. He's the reason why I think that they ended up with Keenum instead of Cousins. And I won't say that. I think he's the reason why they ended up with Keenum. Cousins wasn't coming to Denver regardless. But I think they would have made a bigger push. I think a lot of the decisions up to Cousins not signing with Denver were about getting Cousins, and I don't think they would have wasted their time with a lot of those moves. And the team would be better today if they hadn't wasted their time with all of those moves. If Kubiak had been a part of the decision-making sooner. But they had a disagreement, and of course, when you have a disagreement, Elway wins. So I think that's kind of the way that the whole situation has been influenced. By the way, guys, before we wrap things up here, I'm going to get to a few more comments. Well, we're going to talk. I got a couple more things to say about the Broncos before we get out of here. But want to remind everybody, if you're looking for a house in Denver, go to tjsagent.com. Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. Brent, a good friend of mine now, and as you can see, he's watching us there and commenting in there. It's a big part of the show. We absolutely love Brent around here. My wife and I were looking for a house in Denver. We were in a tiny, cramped apartment. We needed to get out. We finally were able to with Brent helping us, and we are so glad that we were able to, get really lucky, honestly, with Brent. And not everybody gets lucky like us. Fortunately, you don't have to rely on luck to find a great real estate agent in Denver. I'm recommending one to you. Brent Malia Properties with Coldwell Banker. Remember, just go to tjsagent.com and check him out. Of course, if you're looking for a mortgage in Denver, need help with your mortgage, buying, selling, refinancing, doesn't matter, PlatteRiverMortgage.com is the place to go for that. Ari says, what do you think of Khalil Mack to the Bears? I think it's good for the Bears, up-and-coming team, young team. They don't have a lot of big contracts on the books. Khalil Mack represents, I think, their largest, or will represent their largest, eventually second largest, I think, right now. But they don't have a lot of big contracts on the books, which is good for them. They've got a starting quarterback. They don't need those two firsts. If they continue to improve and win more and more games, those picks become less and less valuable. The Raiders are abysmal. They are a train wreck. Reggie McKenzie, I think, should resign just out of principle at this point because he has been undermined and flat out just run over by John Gruden. And Gruden doesn't know what he's doing. And I don't know why people give so much accolade and praise to John Gruden. John Gruden hasn't coached in 10 years. It's not like they signed Mike Tomlin. Tomlin is a way better coach than John Gruden is. Even if they had been coaching when John Gruden retired, he wasn't as good as Mike Tomlin is today. And so I would fire Vance Joseph and hire Mike Tomlin in a heartbeat. And by the way, Steelers fans, you are out of your damn minds trying to think that Mike Tomlin isn't a good enough coach for you. He is amazing. But, sometimes change of scenery, blah, blah, blah. Bill Belichick has needed to change the scenery. Neither is Marvin Lewis. Both of those things, but both of those two things totally unrelated to one another. Like the Raiders, the worst team in the division by a large margin at this point. Then it's, I think, the Chiefs, and I say Chiefs just because, their offense is going to be pretty good, but I don't know what their defense is going to. Their defense may be one of the worst in the league. Their defense may be like Seattle or Indianapolis bad in the secondary without Eric Berry. And Eric Berry is day-to-day right now. We don't know if he's going to play in the first game. I think he's probably not going to play in the first game. I don't think he's suited up in Kansas City in like a month. So, Eric Berry, no Marcus Peters. Congratulations on trading away your best Pro Bowl asset at this point in Marcus Peters. and being fairly unremorseful about it. Your defense is now terrible because of decisions you made. And then after that, I got to put the Broncos second. If by default, I got to put the Broncos second in the division, and then the Chargers are up here. If the Chargers don't win this division, it will be one of the biggest missed opportunities in Chargers history. And they've had a lot of missed opportunities in their history. Let's see here. Ari says, what do you think? Joey says, Sutton and Freeman were all Kubiak. Look, Cortland Sutton looks legit. We'll have to wait and see what he does. Royce Freeman's going to get the bulk of, I think he's going to have the greatest impact of any rookie right now. Royce Freeman, and then I think Bradley Chubb, and then I think Cortland Sutton, mainly because Emmanuel Sanders is more the kind of receiver that Case Keenum likes. But big downfield target. Sutton's legit. Joey finally says, think Royce will help our offensive line gel or he will suffer our offensive line doesn't? That's a good question. Royce Freeman's looked really, really good. And I've said this, it could be a game changer for them this season if their running game is good. Well, a lot of it's going to be injury related. I think on the interior I feel good about it, but you've got on one end, you've got Jared Veldier, who is the injury case that he is. So he may not make it all the way through the season. And then on the other side, you've got Garrett Bowles. And Bowles is, he led the league in penalties last year. So holding penalties. So like those are not great bookends for your offensive line. Just going to be honest. But if they're running between the tackles, which Royce Freeman's going to be running a lot between the tackles, I'd say that their shots are pretty good. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm out of here. We'll be back tomorrow. Don't forget, check out our stuff on Watch Mojo. What the Football, WT Football, hashtag it, watch it. We're looking for your best fantasy football names on Watch Mojo this week. So give us that. Give us your thoughts. What are your best fantasy football names? And we will pick the 10 best to rank for you on Watch Mojo coming up later on this week. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm TJ Carpenter. See you on Tuesday.